All right, welcome in everyone, kicking off another deep dive presented by Safety One Source. Geared towards all you safety folks out there and anyone really who wants to know a little more about keeping things safe at work, right?
Absolutely. Safety is paramount.
Okay, so today we're getting into something pretty practical. A lot of times on these federal contracts, you don't just have construction going on, right? You've got other stuff happening too, like maybe manufacturing or something like that.
Yeah, real mix of activities going on.
Exactly, mixed types of performance.
Yeah.
So the question we're tackling is this. When you have a federal contract with this kind of mix, when do those federal safety regulations, specifically OSHA's 29 CFR Part 1926, the ones that folks often call 1926.14 for short, when do those actually apply?
It's a really common question, and the answer is crucial for ensuring compliance and, of course, safety on these complex projects.
Our mission today is to really try to make it crystal clear when those construction safety standards come into play, especially with these blended contracts. Where do we even begin with this?
Well, it's always helpful to understand the why behind the rules.
Right, the intent.
Exactly. And for this, we can look way back to 1969. Yeah, you heard that right, to House Report named 91-241.
Wow, going way back.
Right. But it's super relevant because it lays out Congress's clear goal. They wanted safety and health protection for any and all construction work that's tied to the federal government in some way.
Okay, so not just direct federal projects, but things like federally financed construction or projects getting federal assistance, stuff like that.
Precisely. It's about a connection to the federal government. And that foundational idea really shapes how we interpret these regulations today.
So this report makes it clear right from the get-go that it's not limited to contracts that are only for construction, right?
Right. And if we look at the actual wording in 1926.14a, it states that when a federal contract involves what it calls mixed types of performance, and construction is one of those types, then Section 107 of the Occupational Safety and Health Act kicks in.
And that section applies to the construction part of that contract. So, help me out here. Let's say we've got a safety pro dealing with a federal contract, and this contract is for building a new, office building, let's say, but also installing all this high-tech equipment inside, all under the same agreement.
Right, a common scenario.
So the rules aren't going to just ignore the building part just because there's some equipment installation happening too.
Not at all. Those federal construction safety rules still apply to that construction phase, even with other activities happening alongside it.
Interesting. So it sounds like these regulations have pretty broad reach then.
Absolutely. The wording of Section 107 itself focuses on the type of work being done. So if there's construction, alteration, or repair happening as part of a federal contract, those safety regulations are in play.
Okay, so let me get this straight. It doesn't even matter if the contract itself isn't primarily labeled as a construction contract.
Exactly. If the work involves construction under a federal contract, those safety regulations are relevant. Think about a situation where, say, a military base needs a new vehicle maintenance bay, and the same contract includes outfitting that bay with specialized lifts and equipment. The construction of the bay itself, that definitely falls under these regulations.
So we've got this broad application of Section 107, and I'm guessing there are connections to other regulations too, especially when we're dealing with activities beyond just construction, right?
You got it. And this is where things can get a little tricky for safety folks. That's why Section 1926.14b tells us to also look at 1926.15b.
Okay, another section to keep in mind. What does that one cover?
It addresses how these construction safety regulations mesh with the Walsh-Healy Public Contracts Act. That act has its own set of labor standards, and this cross-referencing is really acknowledging that, hey, when you have both construction and, for example, manufacturing going on under a single federal contract, well, those two sets of regulations got to work together, to make sure you've got comprehensive safety coverage.
I see, a layered approach to safety. So, to bring it all together for everyone listening, if there's any construction work happening under your federal contract, even if it's mixed with other stuff, those federal construction safety rules, specifically Section 107, are going to apply to those construction activities. That seems like a pretty important takeaway for safety pros to remember.
Absolutely. And it raises a really interesting question for everyone to ponder. Given this broad application, how do we practically maintain effective, consistent safety standards across these different, sometimes really diverse, federally funded projects? It's a challenge for sure, but the benefits of having those baseline construction safety rules in place, even in these mixed activity projects, are huge. It's something everyone working on these projects needs to be thinking about, how to keep things safe in these complex environments.
Definitely something to consider. All right, everyone, that wraps up another Safety One Source deep dive. As always, stay safe out there.
And stay informed.